The Prime Minister has arrived in the Pacific Island nation of Tuvalu to attend his first Pacific Islands Forum. Climate change is top of the agenda, with Pacific leaders making it clear Australia is not doing enough to reduce emissions.
Now, we were mentioning the Prime Minister's arrival in Tuvalu for the Pacific Islands Forum.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison is facing hard-hitting questions from...
Good morning. We begin with the fallout from Scott Morrison's stand on climate change at the Pacific Islands Forum. Live to Canberra.
Like, how would you feel if your home, like you lost your home? Like, it's horrible. I just, like, for me, I can't even fathom it, and that for them, that it's reality, yeah. I don't think we get it because it's not about the people, it's more so about the issue. I related it back to what home is for people. In particularly like people in Australia and how they feel about their home. So I did, a series of interviews as well as like a social media and advertising campaign to go along with that. Like create a relationship between ourselves and the people of Tuvalu and create a relationship with them to make them feel supported and that they're not alone. I think I was, just up late one night thinking about it. And that saying just clicked in my head and I thought it worked really well.
Warm, cozy, love, comfortable, mum. Home is some place I always miss because I'm here by myself for 14 years. So home is home, yeah.
I think it's very important. Yeah, like home should be a place where you should always feel very safe.
Family and friends. Somewhere where I can go back to where I feel comfortable and loved. That's what makes home home.
So I've actually hand-stitched scuba goggles and a snorkel onto Scott Morrison, Donald Trump and Pauline Hanson. I've also used quotes from them as well, from their Twitter, like saying, Scott Morrison was like, "How good is Australia? How good are Australians?" I've just hand-stitched that quote. I'm using these quotes to, I guess, kind of say how ridiculous this all is. So the scuba mask and the scuba gear kind of represents the sea levels rising, kind of like how we'll be safe from it and they won't be. They are climate change deniers pretty much. So the stitching represents their culture, but it's also something that we can relate to because it's something in our culture as well. These are real people. After hearing, I guess, a few politician statements, I was kind of like, this isn't right anymore. And that's kind of when that's when like the lights went on for me.
I did like a campaign about what home is, or what home means to all people, and it's kind of connecting Tuvalu and Australia. So it's both people from Tuvalu and Australia sharing their stories about what home means to them. It's mostly on like social media, but so it's both like written stories with images, but also like animations of like with people like doing a voiceover in the background. A lot of these people in Tuvalu will lose their homes due to the rising water levels. So, they're in a situation where they might lose everything they have, but also like the place that they call home and like their stories, like they're linked to those places. I think it's mostly to bring awareness about like the issue and like if you can relate to like, because sometimes it's always like made us like, oh, like these people and like they're different kind of people, but we're all the same and like we all have like the same stories depending on like it doesn't matter where you come from, like you still have a home. Well, it's kind of based on the branding I did for the organization. So the branding is based on
their culture and arts and crafts. So a lot of it is based on weaving, because that's like a big element in their culture. So what the logo is just like 4 pieces or 4 bands woven together, and I want to like use that in like the secondary language, and just so the video is these kind of bands like drawing images and like telling the story pretty much.
I did a stop motion animation of the creation story of Tuvalu, so I used paper art to create the characters and all sorts of different elements in the video to portray the creation story and also other mythology within Tuvalu culture. So the creation story is that there is an eel and a flounder, and they don't quite look like how we know eels and flounders now. And one day the eel and the flounder get into a fight, and the flounder gets crushed with a rock and he's flattened. And he gets really angry at the eel about this because now he has this sad flat body. And so he chases the eel and they fight, and the eel recognizes how he has hurt the flounder. And so he throws this stone into the air and wishes for them to be friends and have this good relationship. And later on in the story, he places the 8 islands of Tuvalu in the shape of the flounder's body, and the flounder is so happy about this, they become friends. Just thought it was, since it's so centered around friendship and relationship, that was kind of what it attracted to me first, to make this the point of the story, or the point of my campaign and what I'm doing. In Australia, it's so easy to become desensitized to political issues, I think now at the moment, especially with things like climate change. I think everybody recognizes that things are sort of slowly changing a little, but we don't really have an empathetic connection with that at all. Whereas these people have a massive connection. They're watching their homes being taken away. And then within their creation story, there's so much empathy, which I feel like as a Western culture, as a culture that's so privileged, we don't really recognize that as much, or don't have a necessity to recognize that as much, or an urgency. So I think I wanted to create a story that's so simple and beautiful and so in depth within another culture, and show it to, I think, a culture that feels it's lacking in that in a lot of ways, and have a connection with it, and be able to empathize with the story, and in that also see ourselves in the eel and the flounder, and be able to create change because of that. So rather than taking climate action for the sake of taking climate action, or the environment or whatever else, take climate action for the sake of the people of Tuvalu and for us and for everyone. I think it's irresponsible to reduce people down to a culture, but I think that's the best way to make them consumable to a society that doesn't care, I guess, if that makes sense, because of a culture that's so vibrant and so interesting and has lasted so long. It's so much easier to get people to connect with a story rather than have to pick and sift through the individual problems of every single person. You just get presented this beautiful, simple little story, and then you can, have the passion within you to be able to look into those tiny little stories. Like it creates empathy and compassion and whatever else to actually delve deeper, I guess.
We decided to build something physical to communicate the issue for those affected at Tuvalu. We knew we had to represent some of the key ideas of the issue visually and with motion. We really hoped that the initial response for those seeing it wouldn't be like a heavy and defensive response, which often happens when representing issues surrounding climate change. So we just focused on a few key ideas. We wanted to build a moving wave, one that represented the rising sea levels. That seemed to be one of the critical and key ideas. The wave itself is so beautiful. It's why we all go to the beach or enjoy the ocean. But nature can be cruel, and the same beautiful movement is also powerful and can be destructive. Our initial goal was to give the viewers the opportunity to control the height of the wave. And these were based on the projected numbers of sea levels rising, so that the viewer could see in the future where the sea would be, and also look at the past. It was a great use of data driving a physical piece. It just makes us reflect on our decisions as a country and how we affect others. We're all interconnected, and our actions affect those, even though their voice may be small.
The Tongan Prime Minister has been reduced to tears as Scott Morrison battled to ensure a statement from the Pacific Island Forum did not include a coal ban. Australia won the argument, but some Pacific leaders are angry at the watered-down commitment to action on climate change.
I think design can help people understand things better.
I think for people who care about climate action and know about it, they can feel as though it's not scary, that there is hope, that we can still do something, that there is a way to band together and make it better. And for people who aren't aware of climate action or don't care or don't know about Tuvalu, I hope that they are enlightened and are inspired in a little way to change what they're doing or look into it a bit more or learn about Tuvalu and the Pacific Islands.